Welcome back. Over the last few trading sessions, over the last few days, we've been talking about the paint industry at large. This after the announcement of a large incumbent, a large industry, a comprehensive presentation that was made by Birla Opus itself. What does it take to succeed in the paint industry or so? We have with us the management of Indigo Paints. Now, Indigo Paints, remember, has been among the more recent entrants and the one that has crossed 1,200 crores in revenues itself. So, what's the outlook for the industry? We are joined by Mr. Hemant Jalan. Thanks a lot, Mr. Jalan, for taking the time out. With new players coming in and a lot of other people, other corporates talking about the paint industry, what one needs to understand is that over the last 30 years or so, the paint industry has been dominated by two players. What is it that it makes it so difficult to penetrate? I mean, global players like Nippon, etc., Sherwin-Williams have come in as well. Some large MNCs too, who are present, are not still in the top two marks. So, what is it that makes it so difficult for the paint industry to be difficult to penetrate, and the barriers to entry are not as high?
I think the barriers to entry are very high, and the reason why it is very difficult to penetrate, it's a strange industry in which the end consumer is really not the decision maker for the brand. The brand choice is influenced by the painter or the painting contractor. The end consumer merely holds a veto power. So that means that if a painter recommends a particular brand that the end consumer has not heard of enough, the end consumer is likely to veto the suggestion. Otherwise, the brand choice is dictated really by lakhs and lakhs of painters and painting contractors spread across the country. Now, winning their hearts and convincing them that your paint is the right paint is a very time-consuming step. Linked to that is, it is only when you win the hearts of the painting contractor that the dealer agrees to adopt your tinting machine. And that is a prerequisite to your selling the top coat emulsions in the market. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg story. You can't get your tinting machines on the ground unless you win the hearts of the painter. And it's very difficult to win their hearts unless your tinting machines are present. So it's a very slow grind. It's a very slow process of interacting with these painters and painting contractors, convincing them that your paint is the best. And you do not do it in a static environment. You do it where all the other existing players are also chasing the same painters and painting contractors. And that makes the job difficult. It makes it time consuming. And this is why all new entrants in the past, and you named quite a few of them, like Sherwin-Williams and Nippon, and there have been Jotun, another multinational. There have been large industrial groups, not in the paint business, who have also entered. JSW entered 5 years ago. Last year, you had JK and Astral and Pidilite entering the sector. But it takes a very long time to move the needle sufficiently, and which is why the top two have remained the top two for very good reason for a very long period of time.
Okay, all right. Hi, Mr. Jalan. Good morning. This is Nigel on this side. That's a valid couple of observations and points that you're making out. Then we take that on board. Since another large player has entered now, and a formidable player with a good amount of distribution reach as well, which is the Birla Group. The point that I wanted to ask you is on ad spends. You'll have to show a little bit more aggression maybe up the ad spends. But I recall you telling us that ad spends as a percentage of sales will start coming down, I think, by around 100 and 150 basis points. Correct. So as of the last recorded number, what is ad spends as a percentage of sales? And do you still believe that it will come down? Because some of your competitors may up the ante.
I doubt if anyone would up the ante because of a new entrant entering this field. As I said, entry of new players is nothing new as far as this sector is concerned. We have had larger players than the one that you're talking about entering the paint industry, and players who are multinationals who have had rich experience in paints outside India. And I did not see any noticeable increase in ad spend by any of the existing players whenever these players have entered. As I said, advertising is intended for the end consumer, and the end consumer does not really take the brand decision. All you need is a reasonably decent level of background advertising so that the consumer is aware of your brand, and the rest of the effort goes in convincing the painter and the influencer as far as the brand selection is concerned. So I do not see any reason for us to increase our ad spend with new entrants entering the market, because this is something which is not new to us. We entered the paint sector when there were four very dominant giants in the paint sector: Asian, Berger, Nerolac, and Akzo. And since then, in the last 20, 25 years, so many other larger players have entered, and yet we have managed to outperform the industry,
Got it.
maintain our position, and grow our market share. And I don't see that changing with the entry of one or two or three more new players into the market.
So ad spends as a percentage of sales is what? And it comes down to what? Just to, revise that number?
Last year, it was about 7.5%. In the last fiscal, we'd expect that to come down to somewhere between 6.5% in the current fiscal when we end. And the ad spend as an absolute amount does increase by maybe 5-7% every year. But since the top line grows much faster than that, the ad spend as a percentage of revenue comes down. We are still very over-indexed, at 6% of top line being spent on advertising. It's much higher than the existing players in the market. And therefore, it will take a couple of years before we reach closer to the level of our larger peers in this industry.
All right. So let's talk about a couple of things then. You did say that a lot of people tried to enter the market, and they were a lot larger in the paint industry than the one that we just mentioned. I wanted your thoughts on a couple of things. One, this is unprecedented in the sense that it's the second largest capacity that we have. Not only is the capex, the comprehensive plan that they spoke about included reaching out to dealers, reaching out to painters, etc., at the same time adding tinting machines as well. With the aggressive targets that they've given, which has not been given earlier, 3 years, 10,000 crores on the top line, profitable EBITDA, what sort of action do you expect in the marketplace from here on, from both incumbents and the new players? And how does a player like you defend and grow its turf?
I cannot comment on the strategy of the new incumbent who's coming into the market. It is for them to decide their strategy and to make their plans. And we are no one to comment on that. As far as the incumbents are concerned, I think it is a relative non-issue because we have seen these entries happening many times in the past. The paint industry has never been devoid of very intense competition. It has always been there and will continue to be there. More people will enter in the future. Some will exit, some will remain, and this will go on. So I don't think that we have to do anything different because of one new entrant coming into the market, who, by the way, will take some time to establish and find its own feet, irrespective of whatever their plans are. And the aggressive plans and the targets that you talk about, I think we have heard this many times earlier from other groups. They have not quite achieved their potential. Maybe this incumbent will, maybe it will not. I'm no one to comment on that. Time will tell as to how they execute and how they perform.
Yes.
But in the near term, in the next 1 or 2 years, I do not see any meaningful change in the competitive landscape happening.
Okay, some will exit. You briefly mentioned that. Mr. Jalan, if someone told you that I want to buy out your company and giving you a good valuation, would you sell out?
Never. Why should I? We have a long road to go. We have been outperforming the industry. We continue to do that. There is no chance of us considering a sellout to anyone at all.
Well, Mr. Jalan, we appreciate you joining in. Mangalam and myself have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You have been crystal clear with regard to the outlook. How do you see the industry pan out? And you definitely don't want to sell out. Thanks so much for joining in. Our viewers as well would have appreciated this conversation. Looking forward to chatting up with you rather soon. Well, for the time being, we need to address some flashes that were